Our first ladies semifinal at SW19 is set after Aryna Sabalenka and Amanda Anisimova scored some nerve-wracking quarterfinal wins. Sabalenka will be the favorite on paper to reach her fourth straight slam final, but Anisimova leads her head-to-head and might be in slightly better form right now comparing the two. So, which woman will claim their first final spot on Friday? Hello, I'm Christian Bass Knight and welcome to Christian's Court, where I cover tennis from all angles. If you have not yet already, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post new content. World number one Aryna Sabalenka won the third longest women's match of this year's Wimbledon, defeating crafty German Laura Siegemund 4-6, 6-2, 6-4 in 2 hours and 54 minutes. I feel like a lot of people probably thought that Sabalenka would just steamroll through this match. Understandably so, considering how Siegemund is ranked 104 in the world and she's making her slam quarterfinal debut in this match, and she's 37 years old too, which is really wild. But I knew that Siegemund would cause Sabalenka some problems. I didn't expect for the match to be this tight, but I knew that Laura would pose a threat because she got a great win, 6-3, 6-3 win over Madison Keys in the third round. And she also pushed Elena Rybakina, another big hitter, last year at Wimbledon, 3 sets. And that's when I knew that Siegemund definitely is a big threat on the grass. What makes Siegemund so tough on the surface is just her craftiness. First of all, she was so smart to chip and even drop shot Sabalenka's first serves. And I think that players should employ this more, especially on the lower bouncing grass. This caused Sabalenka to come in not on her own terms, and she wasn't as comfortable. And the slice itself, I feel, is a good change-up shot, and it did well to draw many errors from the shaky Sabalenka forehand, and also drew quite a few errors from Sabalenka's backhand as well throughout this match. Siegemund was just tearing Sabalenka up with the drop shots, and she won a vast majority of those drop shot points. Many of the drop shots were well executed, but Sabalenka just kept going cross court, leaving the wide open court for Siegemund to just put away the following shot. Laura does not have the biggest serve by any means, and I think that Sabalenka should have broken more than she did. And even when Siegemund didn't hold her serve, it was just a tussle for Sabalenka to even break Laura's serve due to the slice serve into the forehand/body area of Sabalenka. Sabalenka's serve, meanwhile, was not doing her any favors throughout most of this match. She didn't hit her first ace until her final service game of the match at 4-all in the third set, which is insane. And Sabalenka also had very limited success behind her second serve for much of this match. She won 33% of her second serve points. The kick serve of Aryna's was not effective at all, really, and it makes sense because the grass takes out the bounce of it, but also Siegemund did a great job of stepping up more and taking it early and picking it off, especially on her backhand. Overall, Sabalenka did have more success behind both her first and second serves in the second set of this match, which is why she won it 6-2. And much of it, I think, though, was due to her playing from the ground, to be honest. She was much more patient, I feel, compared to the first set, and she was more selective in picking the right moment to move forward instead of just getting burned time after time. And also Siegemund's level, it for sure dipped in the second set. She threw in a lot more unforced errors, and she let Sabalenka off the hook more with missed returns. I really thought that Sabalenka would kind of steamroll through to the finish line, and she won 5 games in a row, from 2-all in the second set to 1-love in the third set. But Siegemund stopping the bleeding in the second game of that third set was huge and critical for her. Laura did play a bit better in the third set, but Sabalenka, I feel like it was just her being noticeably off in that deciding set. The quality of this third set was not that high from either woman. A lot of it was just nerves, as both ended up with 5 winners to 16 unforced errors in that third set. Siegemund twice led by a break on 2 separate occasions in this third set alone, and that 3-1 game when she was leading was a big missed opportunity for her. She had a sitter backhand down the line winner at 15-all, which she fumbled, went cross court and missed it wide. Then she had a game point for 5-3 at 4-3. And the nerves were definitely evident here because she sliced at a deep forehand that she really should have just hit as a regular ground stroke. If Laura had a little bit more moxie, a little bit more nerves, then I think she would have beaten Sabalenka. As Sabalenka, she looked very, very shaky out there. And I think that Laura for sure let her off the hook. But I feel like that if is a big if. And I knew the nerves would be big for Laura. Even though she is a bit older, she has not been in this position ever in her career before. But big credit to Sabalenka for calming herself down, because she was really amped up and riled up and pissed, falling all on the court, but she was able to control it in the end to close out the match, so props to her for that. And she did say after the match in her post-match press conference that the Roland Garros final it was similar in that regard, but it also helped her in that things weren't going her way, the conditions and her opponent was really frustrating her, but she was still able to keep her cool enough to finish strong. This was a good test for her, I feel, and I think this will actually help her in her next round. Just being able to kind of grind through this type of match, as I feel like oftentimes when players get through a scrappy match, they play a lot better in their next match. But on the flip side, I think this match highlighted yet another way for players to beat Sabalenka. It kind of exposes Aryna, and this strategy isn't used enough of drawing Sabalenka in with short slices and chips only to pass her, because when you're brought in not on your own terms, it's just hard regardless of who you are. And yes, Sabalenka has improved a lot at the net, but it still was a little bit new for her and being drawn in like that, especially right off the bat. A lot of times Laura was slicing chip short and even drop shotting Sabalenka's serve. That was a huge like new look for her. This match also showed me that Sabalenka's serve is not as effective as it once was, like maybe in 2021 or even like 2023, 2024. And I feel like this serve of hers has helped her from winning slams this season. It's just been so hard for her to hold at some parts, and sometimes she's not really getting those free and easy points. Her very last service game was the only time I feel where she was getting routine free and easy points, and it was really not much that Siegemund could do. She's not really hitting her spots as well from the serve, and that's something that I think needs to improve upon if she wants to win Wimbledon, especially on the second serve. She's not having a lot of success. That's been a common trend with her in these last few losses. Opponents having a high number of second serve return points won against Aryna. It's got to stop, and we have the mentality of Aryna being a big server, but she hasn't really shown us her big serving a lot of this tournament and a lot of this season, to be totally honest. I think that'll be an important shot in her next match. Of course, her semifinal opponent will be Amanda Anisimova, who returns to her second ever slam semifinal and first in over 6 years after defeating Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova 6-1, 7-6. This was one-way traffic for Amanda up until 6-1, 5-2, and she was much more solid from the ground compared to Anastasia. And Amanda, she's such a strong and sound ball striker, and it's even more tough to play on the grass because she is a pretty flat hitter. She served and returned extremely well, again, up until 6-1, 5-2, but that's when we could see the pressure of trying to reach her second ever slam semifinal started to hit her, and the forehand broke down a tad more, and Pavlyuchenkova, credit to her, she kept up with her intensity and did well to keep pressuring the shakier Anisimova forehand. And Anastasia also had better placement on her shots, and she did well to move the American a lot more, especially wide to the forehand. That's where Anisimova is a little bit more vulnerable. Things got extremely complicated for the American as she got broken at 5-3, and then she failed to convert 2 match points in the 5-4 game. She also fumbled a love 30 look at 6-5 when Pavlyuchenkova was serving to stay in the match. And then the tiebreaker was truly a roller coaster because Anisimova, she was 3-6 down in the second set tiebreaker, facing 3 set points in a row. She faced 5 set points total in this tiebreaker, but still a really strong and solid effort from her to close that out, because things could have been very different for her if she lost this second set, which she was a point away from doing multiple times. So credit to her again for that. I really got to take a moment and talk about how beautiful Amanda's story is and how full circle this moment is of her returning to the semifinal stage at a major. This time last year, she was ranked 189th in the world, and she fell in the 3rd round of qualifying here at Wimbledon. And now she's in her first Wimbledon semifinal and sits at 8 in the live rankings, set to make her top 10 debut on Monday. This will be her second ever slam semifinal, of course, and her first since the 2019 Roland Garros Championships, which she made as a 17-year-old. And the expectations were very high on Anisimova after that, and she felt it. She felt the expectations and weight and pressure on her, and it ultimately forced her to take a break from tennis as she cited burnout and mental health concerns. And it also didn't help that her father passed away shortly after she made that semifinal run at Roland Garros. Anisimova took about an 8-month hiatus from the sport, announced it in May 2023, and during that break she took up other hobbies like art, and she also went to college for the first time. And she returned at the start of the 2024 season, where she was ranked around outside the top 400 at the time. But since she came back, it's been amazing, considering how it's been a year and a half since that comeback, making the Toronto finals, winning her first WTA 1000 title in Doha this year, her biggest title of her career, getting a lot of great wins throughout the season as well. And now here, making another slam semifinal. And we've been expecting this from Amanda for a very long long time. So it's great that she is back at this stage after all those years and after all the adversity that she faced. And she's really just such a great inspiration, how she's been transparent with her mental health journey as well. So full props to Amanda, and congratulations again for even making it to the semifinal stage. Now looking ahead at this Sabalenka Anisimova semifinal, Amanda, she leads the head-to-head 5-3, and many of Anisimova's wins over Sabalenka were before Aryna became a slam champion, and of course before Sabalenka was world number 1. These two are 2-2 in majors, and Sabalenka just won their last meeting at the Roland Garros 4th round by a score of 7-5, 6-3. That one was pretty tight. Anisimova had her chances in the opening set, but Sabalenka was just too strong in the end. This will be their first meeting on the grass, and I feel like this surface would favor Anisimova a little bit more in the matchup standpoint because, as I mentioned earlier, Anisimova is such a flat hitter and she's able to rush Sabalenka even more. And Sabalenka alluded to this in her press conference of how it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for her and how the grass, again, suits Anisimova's games so well. Sabalenka, she has a lot of power for sure. We all know that, but she can still be beaten with pace. And that's a way that Sabalenka has been beaten oftentimes this season, the few times that she has lost this season. And Anisimova did this very well in their Toronto quarterfinal from last year, just rushing Sabalenka. And I think that, again, with this being grass, Anisimova has a better chance of doing this, executing this game plan to perfection, because we have seen Sabalenka get rushed on the grass throughout this tournament against lesser or less big ball strikers. I also think that Anisimova comparatively will be much more prepared for this matchup. She played 2 big hitters back-to-back in round 4 against Linda Noskova and then in the quarterfinals against Pavlyuchenkova. Meanwhile, Sabalenka, she's played Boskova, Raducanu, Meriden, Siegemund. None of those women really hit nearly as hard or as flat as Anisimova. So I think that could be an adjustment for Sabalenka to make. It might take her some time to adjust to Anisimova's ball. I think that Aryna needs to be cognizant of trying to move Amanda, get her on the move, especially on that forehand wing. That's something that Pavlyuchenkova did a great job towards the end of their semifinal match. And I would love for Sabalenka to use her angle forehand shot a little bit more throughout this match. I think that Sabalenka, on that note, should really try to break down the Anisimova forehand a little bit more. A lot of Anisimova's success relies on timing on that forehand side. That forehand shot can be pinpoint accurate, money, but the shot can also go off the rails, especially when that wing is met with immense pace. And Anisimova can't spray a lot from that wing. Amanda's backhand, especially her backhand down the line, is much more of a reliable shot. I think the serve will be huge in this matchup, and it will boil down, I feel like the outcome will boil down to who has the better serving day. Of course, it's such an easy point to point out, but both women have pretty good, comparatively big serves compared to the rest of the tour, but both can also run into issues on their serve. Amanda, she has served 21 aces throughout the tournament to Sabalenka's 20. However, the American has served a tournament-leading 31 double faults compared to Sabalenka's 12 double faults throughout this fortnight thus far. Now, I was going to have Amanda take this one. I still think that, of course, she can, but judging from how it was a little bit of a rough ride for her to close out that quarterfinal against Pavlyuchenkova, I think I'll slightly go over to having Sabalenka take this one. I made in like 3 sets or so. Again, those last few games against Pavlyuchenkova were very shaky, and it exposed quite a few of Anisimova's vulnerabilities. And if she was like this in the quarterfinals against Pavlyuchenkova, imagine how she'll be like against Sabalenka in the semifinals playing for her maiden slam final. I don't know, we just definitely cannot underestimate how the nerves will be for Anisimova. And I think the best bet for Anisimova is to try to win this in straight sets. I feel like Sabalenka should just be a little bit too tough to win this match in 3 sets. I just feel like it'll be the case. And I feel like sometimes Anisimova, she can struggle physically when things are going the distance, especially with the pressure. She's known to get really bad stomach aches. So I think for sure Amanda needs to close this one out in straight sets, which I think that she can do, but I just think it'll be a little bit of a tough ask for her to do so. Now, what's interesting is we might see a less nervy Anisimova when it comes time to close if the opportunity does come for her, because just it was so tough for her to get that monkey off her back. She knew has been such a long time since she made a slam semifinal, so I think that now that she got the monkey off the back, she might might play a little bit more free. And she knows that she won't be a big favorite coming into this one compared to she was a pretty big favorite or a decent favorite against Pavlyuchenkova, knew how big of an opportunity it was. So Anisimova could come out and play a free match out here. But I think that Sabalenka, knowing how off she was in the Siegemund match, again, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great for her. I think that she'll come out much more sharp and solid, and she'll be fully cognizant of the threat that Anisimova presents. So ultimately, I'll have her winning this in 3 sets. Now, briefly talking about the bottom half of the draw on the women's side, we are looking like we will have a Mirra Andreeva, Iga Swiatek semifinals, as both women will be heavy favorites in their quarterfinal matchups. Mirra will take on Belinda Bencic, and both these women are first-time quarterfinalists here at SW19. Mirra, she's making her 3rd Slam quarterfinal appearance in her last 6 Slam appearances. Meanwhile, this is Belinda's 4th quarterfinal period at a Slam, and it's her first since the 2021 US Open. So that's something to look out for, whether the nerves will come for Belinda, having not been in this position for a very long time. And clearly, she doesn't do the best at this part of a Slam. I feel like the nerves and trying to get over the hump are a lot for her. But I do think that her having her daughter is giving her a little bit more peace of mind, and she's come out and played more free in the bigger matches. Bencic has flown under the radar big time throughout this tournament, and she's recently got a 7-6, 6-4 win over the 18th seed Ekaterina Alexandrova. Mirra, meanwhile, she dominated 2 Americans back-to-back, Haley Baptiste in the 3rd round before dominating Emma Navarro 6-2, 6-3. This will be intriguing and an interesting watch because both women are very crafty, but I gotta side with Mirra here to come through. She's been, I feel like, in better form lately. And then we have the other quarterfinal between Iga Swiatek and Ludmila Samsonova. Swiatek seeks her first semifinal at Wimbledon. It's the only Slam where she has not yet made a semifinal at. Meanwhile, Samsonova is seeking her first Slam semifinal appearance, period. This would be Ludmila's first Slam quarterfinal, and she finally got over the hump, beating Jessica Buzas-Minero in straight sets, and Samsonova has not dropped a set this entire tournament. Swiatek, meanwhile, she has looked phenomenal this tournament, I feel, especially in her last few matches against Danielle Collins and Clara Towson. Iga, she's going to be a huge favorite here. She leads the head-to-head 4-0, and she dominated their last 3 matches in easy straight sets. I also think that Iga will be well prepared to handle this big-hitting Samsonova challenge, as she's faced 2 big hitters recently in Collins and Towson and handled them in straight sets. Also, you got to mention how Ludmila is not quite experienced at this stage, and I feel like she's not a big stage player. So I feel like even if she is in the position to close out the match, I think the nerves of her trying to make her first semifinal will be too much. So I will be having an Andreeva Swiatek semifinal at SW19. That's all I have for this video. Let me know in the comments whether you think that we will have that Andreeva Swiatek semifinal, and also drop your predictions for Anisimova Sabalenka. Again, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you are notified whenever I post my men's video. I'm thinking of splitting my content from here on out at Wimbledon between just solely women's content for one video and then men's content for another video. So let me know what y'all think about that. My men's video will come soon, so stay tuned for that. Thank you all so much for watching and for your support, and I will see you all next time here on Christian's Court.